If you've got a question, the voices of resin are here. Oh, PlastChicks.
PlastChicks is an SPE-sponsored podcast.
I'm Mercedes Landazuri.
And I'm Lynzie Nebel.
And with our powers combined, we are PlastChicks, the voices of resin.
Actually, I've recorded a CD in the Yingling Logger Caverns.
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you a musician?
Singer.
Okay, well, we're already going on a tangent. I love this. So he knows his way around a microphone.
Du sprechen Sie kleine Deutsch.
Echt?
Ja,
Ja, ich habe eigentlich ein Jahr lang in Deutschland gewohnt.
I'm in my third monochord.
Your third what?
Monochord, man's German choir.
Monochord. Oh, like a Männerchor, yeah?
Monochord, yeah.
Uh-huh, cool.
Wow. That really spiraled. You told me to introduce him and then you went off in German.
All right.
I can't hang. Again, I can order a beer and that's about where my German ends.
Ein Bier
That's what they
bitte?
say, as long as you can order a beer, ein Bier bitte, you can survive in Germany.
Exactly. I'll be fine. Well, this is our next poolside episode of PlastChicks, and we are continuing the trend. We're going along with some of the PlastChicks great couples, and today we have Tim and Barb Womer here with us today. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello. We're really excited to have you here. I know we were kind of talking. We have a lot in common. We are from the same great state of Pennsylvania.
Yep. Amen.
We have crossed many a path in the Penn State arena and many of the people in the Penn State arena. But we are not here to talk about us individually. We are here to talk about you guys as a couple. So I want to start with the first and let's lay the foundation. How did you guys meet? Where did you guys get to know each other?
Well, I was working at the time for a company in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, was known as Newcastle Industries. And we had two factories. We had one where we made feed screws for injection and extrusion. And then we also had a plant on the other side of town where we made heat transfer rolls for like flat sheet. But they also did steel mill work because we were in the Steel Valley back in the 70s.
I mean, Pennsylvania.
Yep, Pennsylvania.
Good for that.
Pittsburgh. And I moved into the office. And 2 weeks after I moved into the office as a draftsman, Barb hires in as a secretary. And good.
And you showed up. You walked into his life.
Well, he asked me out in August, and we had a very nice date. And he didn't
Where did you go? What was your date?
Was it super Pittsburghy? I gotta know.
No, it was one of the nicer hotels in the area
That had it
for
had a
dinner
room,
and dancing and a band. And we had a really nice night, I thought, but then I didn't hear from him for a couple weeks.
Were you traveling for work? I hope you were traveling for work.
Yes. And I thought, geez, wonder why he's not getting in touch with me again, So I gave him a call and I said, would you like to have lunch?
Yes,
he
I love
accepted.
I
this.
thought, she is interested.
And that was in August, the end of August. We got engaged in October and married in February.
Wow.
47 years ago.
It's got to be something in the water out there because my in-laws had a very fast date and then engaged and then married. And I mean, they're still together. So good on that timeline.
Yeah. And then we end up working together for 8 years in the business of, making screws and and rolls and things like that. And then we wanted to start a family and nothing was happening. And her doctor said, well, it might be job stress. So we talked at the time and she was making half of what I was making. So we cut our income by a third because we decided we did want to start a family. I wasn't getting any younger. And the next thing you know, a few months later, guess what? Our son showed up.
And this is the son who went to Penn State Barron.
Also.
Very cool.
Represent plastics.
And a year and a half later, our daughter showed up.
Yep.
So.
Yes. So where does, especially when you guys were building your family, how did work kind of show up, especially because you guys came from the same location work-wise? Yep. How did that kind of influence your relationship besides the very obvious of proximity?
Well, I guess Barb stayed home after Brianna was born. she decided, after Brock was born, she was going to go back to work. She had a state job working in a youth development area, and decided she was going to go back to work. Well, the second day she come home crying and saying, I just want to be a full-time mom. So, and then like Barb said, then our Brianna was born about a year after that. And so she's just going to be a stay-at-home mom. And then one day I come home from work and she told me she had a job interview, which I knew nothing about.
I love a surprise.
A job interview.
Well, I applied at the local school where the kids would go to school. I waited until they were both in school, and I got the perfect mother job at the high school. And I could take them to school with me. When I went to work, I could take them to school and then drop them off.
Yep, you were off. They were off.
And I had the same days off that they had off, and the summer
Very helpful.
off. So, yeah.
And they were probably young enough that they loved that, not like the high school age where they were the most embarrassed.
Yeah. Well, even in high school, they weren't embarrassed. They would come. I worked in the library then, and they would come in and get money or whatever they needed while I was there. Our daughter would, yeah.
And I just kept on staying with the company, and I progressively went up like from being just a draftsman on the board to being head of engineering. But as time went on, it got to the point where the student was questioning the teacher. And I knew it was time to move, time to make a change.
It's good to recognize those signs.
Yeah, and so I left after 15 years with the company. I left and I went to NRM down in Columbiana, Ohio. And at the time, NRM was the oldest extruder manufacturer in America. That was started in 1908. And they did mainly, NRM stood for National Rubber Machinery. And so we did plastic and rubber. And I went in I interviewed, and I was always told I was replaceable where I was at. I went down there and
that feels like toxic workplace environment.
Slightly. And I went down there and interviewed, and they had 3 positions. They had a position for a field service manager, a position for a senior design engineer, mechanical design engineer, and a position running the lab. And I had all this screw design stuff in my head that I needed.
I feel like I know what you chose.
Yeah, first, because we had the pleasure of having lunch with you, and I was going to guess, you went for that first one. It was like, you're working in the field, because you'd said you'd seen a ridiculous number of screws.
I'm saying the second one.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
But I had all this stuff in my head, and plus my previous employer didn't allow me to publish. And I wanted to publish things that I wanted to get on paper to teach others and things. And I've always been an advocate of the smarter I make my customer, the easier my job becomes.
Absolutely.
And so I went on and went there, and I was working in running the lab we did
secret
rubber.
Option 3. We both lost.
Well,
a little bit of a renaissance man.
I said to the vice president of engineering that interviewed me at the time, I said to him, well, which job has the most chance at advancement and pays the best?
Smart.
And he said, I've never, and he said, probably, he goes, running the lab, be involved with the customers coming in and testing and that. And I said, well, I'll tell you what. He's asked me how much I wanted, and I told him, I said, but I'll tell you what, for 6 months, I'll take $5,000 less than that to prove to you, because I'd never had another job, I've worked for the family and that. He goes, I've never had anybody make me an offer like that. Well, within 6 weeks, they bumped me up to $5,000 that I really went in for.
You're like, great news. I'm going to ask for more after this.
But it was that, and it was just from there, it was just stepping stones. I ended up becoming the chief engineer, from being the lab manager to being within 18 months. I went from.
Oh, so you really slow rolled it.
But they ended up, NRM went bankrupt. Davis Standard bought them, and they moved it to Akron, and then they were going to move it to Connecticut. But I didn't want to leave Western Pennsylvania.
Fair. I have respect for that.
So I had friends that worked at Con Air, and the next thing you know, I have an interview, and I'm at Con Air helping develop their extrusion department. That lasted a year, and then I get a phone call from a headhunter that said, he was looking for somebody to run research and development for a company, and I thought he said making plastic components. And I'm thinking, like golf tees or pens or something like that. And he goes, and I said, well, where's it located? And he goes, in Eastern Ohio. And I said, well, I live in Western Pennsylvania. I said, whereabouts in Eastern Ohio? And he goes, near Youngstown. And I go, And they're youngsters.
Hold up.
And I'm going, oh, wait a minute. What kind of plastic components? He goes, no, plasticating components, screws, barrels, non-return valves.
And you said, hell yeah.
I said, would that be Spyrex? And he goes, I didn't say my client's name. And I said, yes, it is. And he said, do you know them? I said, yes, I know the owner personally because we used to work together at Newcastle Industries. Well, before you know it, I'm now the vice president of research and development for a company. And I got to build my own laboratory from scratch.
I love it. And first, we do have to give a shout out to Conair for giving us one of the first women's cut polos.
Yeah, women's size. It was just a t-shirt. So it's hard in our industry. Obviously, they're still fewer women than men, but and a lot of the trade shows, sometimes you get t-shirts,
you just get
things
small
like that.
men's stuff, and it is
or
garbage.
Usually large or extra large men's size
that's usually what you
t-shirts
end
is
up
what
with.
they're handing out. Sometimes triple XL is all, becomes
got a couple-
sweet
couple of
nightgown.
those.
Yeah. But yeah, Conair was the first one where they gave us women's size t-shirts.
So
it was amazing.
They will always hold a special place in our heart.
Very, very special place.
And I still have great connections.
Well, tell them their t-shirts are amazing.
I think your mic cut off for a second. There we go.
And so now you guys this all evolved to you guys actually working together.
Right.
Is that right? So what is one thing that someone like outside of the plastic circle would look at you guys working together and say about your relationship? What do they think about like you both being Team Plastics?
Oh my. Well, the main thing is I tell people I can't even balance a checkbook. Even though I have a minor in mathematics, it doesn't interest me.
Honestly, boring.
And so if it doesn't catch my interest, I just sort of blow it off. Where Barb,
We know something about that.
Right.
where Barb, she has a business background. She does bookkeeping. She does all kinds of stuff that I have no interest in.
The actual backbone of the company.
Exactly.
Yeah, organization and very detailed oriented.
Listen, that pile probably has what I need in it. I just have to get to it.
So how did because you worked together for 8 years,
Right.
then you stayed at home, right? And then
She went back to
and then you went to school with
Yeah.
working at the library at the school. And then so how did you start this business? And now you've worked together for 16 years. Additionally, beyond that initial 8, right?
We started our consulting business. Well, when I was chief technical officer for Exaloy, I just, it was time to move on from there. And we decided, that we were going to start our own consulting business. Because I started first consulted like in 99 and 2000 because I was at Spyrex. And I went in one day and I told him, I'm giving my resignation. And the owner's son was like, where are you going with our competitors? I said, no, I want to consult. And it'd always been, a dream to be, I grew up in a family owned business. So I knew what it was like to be, have that freedom of being your own boss. And I went up and told them and they said, okay, so that was like in 99 and 2000. But then in 2000, where I came from, they were looking for another person to come in and take over the screw designs. And it was my old boss from NRM. He was now the president there. And I went back.
God, I love the smallness of this industry sometimes.
And I went in and I went back and he said, after I did about maybe like 6 months of consulting for them. And Tom told me one day, he goes, listen, this is costing. I'm going you to come back full time with me and run this business. We had 7 factories. And he goes, I'm bringing you back as vice president of engineering and manufacturing. He goes, you grew up on the shop floor. You know the guys on the shop floor. You know the manufacturing side and you know the engineering side. He goes, and engineering and manufacturing never get along. So I'm going to make you the vice president of manufacturing and engineering. And if you have any issues, you can go in the restroom, look at the mirror and beat your head against the wall and fight with yourself.
That's fair. That's fair.
Very respectable move.
And again, then went into a merger with Exaloy. And from there, I've always had 2 rungs on a ladder that I've always reached for. And I think anybody that's driven has motivation, is always reaching for the next rung. And I think that's what drives it. And Barb was just always there to support me, no matter where I went, how I traveled. Like in 2008, I did 4 trips around the world. because we had that's after we merged with Exaloy. We had factories in Asia. I'd fly from Pittsburgh to Chicago to Tokyo to like Beijing, or I'm done India or Thailand, and Thailand to Germany, because we had factories in Germany. We had offices in Italy, and then back home, be gone like for 2 weeks. And she's home raising the kids and working. So she's always just been the support. I think that's what you have. You have to support each other, really.
Mm-hmm. So, Barb, question for you: what roped you in? What convinced you to start working with Tim again?
Was it you just saw the consulting train coming and you went, "Oh no"?
You kept on working for how many years?
Oh, yeah. I did continue working. I had another full-time job, and then we started the consulting business, and it got to be a little bit too much. So I had an opportunity where I finally quit that full-time job and just went full-time working with Tim. So, yeah, I just take care of all the,
the business.
Yeah, he takes care of the engineering, and I take care of the other part.
So you guys have, we've established you guys have been together through many iterations of your careers and your points in life. How has being together shaped the way you see success over time? Because I'm sure success at 20 something looks very different as success now.
Yeah. Probably never really thought about it in the early days.
Well, we're going to make you think about it.
But I guess I really don't know. We were both raised the same. Okay. Both of our fathers were coal miners. We were raised on meat and potatoes. So
that is the most Pennsylvania thing I have heard.
Absolutely.
But I mean,
whoa! So you're a coal miner's daughter. You're a legit coal miner's daughter.
Where's the song, Mercedes?
Right.
And we had that same bringing up, and we had the same backgrounds and everything.
Yeah, we
else.
like the simple life. We like the country life.
We could never live in a place like this. We would not last very long at all.
Yeah.
So we just have always been here to support each other, and we've had our ups and downs. Trust me. It's not always been a bed of roses, especially when you're gone all the time, and then I'll never forget when she was home with the kids and they were like elementary school age. She couldn't wait for me to get home so she could talk to an adult.
That's very fair. There's only so many stories you can hear that says, and mom, and so mom, and mom, and mom, and also, also, I love you, boys.
But it's just been I really believe we complement each other. My dad always said, God makes them and God mates them. And it's that same bringing up that I think really, keeps us so close, that we had that same, our parents were together, my mom and dad were married for 66 years, and Barb's mom and dad were together for many years also, and just, I think that's it. We've had that background, that backbone behind us that, kept us going.
Mm-hmm. And work hard.
Yeah.
And my main goal was to raise good children so they grew up to be good, productive adults.
And you're both very successful.
We did
today.
that. So I feel like that's my success in life.
And you tossed another one into the plastics industry, which is always appreciated.
and then another one has a doctorate.
Yeah. Yep.
So
minor details.
I think you guys are doing a wonderful job.
We did okay.
Yeah, we did okay.
All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us today on the podcast.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to PlastChicks. New episodes appear on the first Friday of every month. So either follow or subscribe to get those new episodes ASAP. PlastChicks, The Voices of Resin, is a plastics podcast sponsored by SPE, Inspiring Plastics Professionals. If you want to find out more about SPE, please visit SPE.org.
If you've got a question, the voices of resin are here. Ooh, PlastChicks.
PlastChicks is an SPE sponsored podcast.